So inevitably you reach that point where when you're repairing something, you can't figure out how to tear down a particular thing or disconnect a particular thing or disassemble a particular mechanism. And I am absolutely stumped right now. I cannot get the foot switch, the top panel, whatever you want to call it, off. I've undone those bolts. I've pulled everything out that I can mechanically, but here's the thing. All right, so it's sitting so that it's on the switch, so that I can kind of pivot it back and forth here. All right, so when I do that, all right, so it's connected to this axle down here. I don't know if you can see it. It's underneath this white thing. The white thing's actually connected to it, the white little spring assembly. So it is connected to that. But when you look down the throat of the thing, it doesn't appear. I mean, you can see that it's not really showing up on this, but you can see that it's not connected to anything on the pedal itself. It looks like it's just this one part. There is a screw in a really awkward place that I can't access. Actually, two screws. There's one inside right there. There's one inside right there. So I was thinking those are somehow connected to that axle, but it just doesn't line up. So I'm thinking that there's a pin that goes through that piece and holds it all together. There's a pin, and it almost looks, if I look down in here in between the optical sensor plate and this part of the chassis, if I look down in there, it almost looks like there's a little bit of that pin sticking out. And then if I look in the end, it's definitely solid in there. There's something in there. That looks like the end of the pin. But I can't just go over to this side and kick it out, because when I look through this side, what I'm actually seeing inside that hole is that part of the assembly, that sensor plate. So can't wreck that. I can't unscrew that from this side. That looks like that's what this is over here. This black panel here is what's keeping that hooked in. I can't take this off, the foot grip section, so I can't see if there are any additional screws underneath that, but it doesn't matter if there are screws underneath that, because see, that's not connected to the top. So I've reached a point where I'm getting kind of pissed with this. So I think, excuse me, I think what I might do is just, as it is right now, try to scrape that gunk off and clean it as much as possible, not disassemble it any further. I mean, I've got all the electronics out of it at this point, so whatever I do will not mess up any of the electronics. I just have to really, really make sure that I get it dry in there, and also that I get it lubed back up before I put it together. There's a lot of lubricant right around that axle there. That's all lubricant on top right there, so want to make sure that it's good and good and loose in there, so that when I reassemble it, it's gonna be nice and smooth still. So yeah, kind of reached an impasse, but yeah, we'll go with it, and we'll get this cleaned up, and then we'll start reassembling it. And yeah, so I skipped a couple of steps when I was disassembling, but hey, shit happens.